Hello everyone, it's Mindy from My Creative Scoop, and I'm back with another Copic marker tutorial for ScrapbookPal.com. Today I'm going to be using this adorable new stamp set. It's called Lucky Duck by My Favorite Things, and we're going to be doing some Copic coloring. So let's get started. Okay, so the first thing I did was stamp my image. So I'm using the cute little duck and frog in the bathtub and the two other frogs. So I did use my Misty to stamp these images. I missed a little bit right here, so I'm going to show you how to fix that by adding some bubbles on the duck's head. I did take my sentiment stamps and I actually cut, because this original sentiment says soak up all the love, and the other one says break out the bubbly. So I cut off each of the lines from break off the bubbly and cut off the love from soak up all the, so I could say soak up all the bubbly. So let's go ahead and get started. Oh, I also stamped my images that we're going to be coloring in Memento Desert Sand, because we're going to go for that no line coloring. And I've stamped onto my Copic Expressive blending card. So now we can get started coloring. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to take the C00 and we're going to just outline where we're going to add the bubbles. So since I have a little gap right here, we're just going to kind of go like that. And I am going to come on his head as well, just like that. And then we're going to take, and we're going to add some bubbles coming out of the bathtub here. Maybe some dripping down. And maybe a little bit on the floor over here. Okay, so it's very light, very faint, but it gives you the idea where it is, so that way you know not to color there. Actually, I'm going to add a couple more up here, like that. Okay, so now we can go ahead and, actually, let's take the C00, we're going to continue, let's do a sketch of the actual outline. So you can use a ruler if you want. I normally don't, but since I have it right here, I'm going to use it. So you don't want to make the bottom of the floor right at the bottom of the bathtub, because that just doesn't make sense. The floor is going to be up here, the back of the floor. So I'm just going to add a line coming out and a line coming out on this side. So now he's on the floor, but the floor is going to continue. It's not up, he's not floating, he's not hovering over the floor. So there we have our ground and the wall. So we're going to leave that like that, and let's go ahead and start coloring the duck image. Okay, so I'm going to take my R20 and I'm going to add some little rosy cheeks to my duck. And then I'm going to take my Y21 and come around the duck's face. So when you're coloring something and you're having the light source just be direct, and the shadow is going to be coming from behind the duck, because you want to make it look like it's round, so it's going to be darker from the back. So remember, you have your bubbles right there, so I'm just going to come down and around. And I'm going to just trace underneath those bubbles so that way we can see it, just like that. And then we're going to add a little bit of a shadow underneath the head. And on the inside part, let's just fill it all the way in. Okay, Phoebe needs to go out now. Life has to stop. So then I'm going to take my E42, and the reason, we're going to go back over it, and I'm going to make the shadow a little bit darker. But since there's no other color that's lighter than Y21, I don't want it to be, if I use any of the 00s, they're very neon. So I don't want that. So I'm going to go back and add a little bit of a shadow using my E42. That way I can bring out and drag out that Y21 with the E41, which is a very nice cream. It's very light. So that way it blends really well with the Y21. And we're going to deepen the shadow here. And I'm going to add a little bit of a shadow underneath this wing over here and along the bottom part of this one. So now let's go back with Y21. We want to add as much of this color towards the back, that way we can drag it out with the E40. So once I've gone back over, because we don't really want it to be a darker, we don't want it to be that E42 color. We want it to be a darker version of this yellow. So that's why we are going back over it. So after you, well, let's do this down here first. So after you do that coat, see how we haven't really come out of that area. But now we're going to go ahead and do a flick. And you could see that it's much lighter where we're flicking it out. See how it's dark here? And then when I flick it going out, it's much lighter right where we stopped flicking. So it's dragging out that color, giving us a lighter version of the Y21. So right above the beak, I'm actually going to add a little line right in here. Oh, not done, not done. And then we're gonna take the Y21 still and do little baby flicks going up on the arms. And now let's take the E41. We need to go back into some of that Y21, so we drag out the color. All right, so now we're going to deepen the shadow a little bit more using Y26. So I'm just going to add a little bit of color in some of the areas. We're not going to add as much as we did with the E42. This is just to kind of make it stand out. Give it that little touch of definition. Nope, went outside the lines. That's okay. So now we're just going to make this cheek a little bit bigger. And since I made this cheek a little bit bigger, I'm going to have to do the same thing over here. There you go. And we're going to add that little bit of a shadow here, here, underneath, and a little along the back. So now we're going to blend that out with the Y21. So again, I'm doing that heavy flick, so I really drag out the color. And it helps it pull the yellow across. And let's do the top. So if you do a really heavy flick going all the way across, you can get to the center of the face, so that way it stays much lighter right in there. And I'm going to do the same thing here. And we're going to flick going back up. And let's drag down the Y26 from the parts of the body. And then let's take the E41, go back over the lightest parts. So right here above the beak, and I'm just gonna add a few strokes right over the lighter part, the center. So since I went a little dark with that Y26, I'm just gonna go back and add a little bit more of the E42. And here. And again with the Y21. And over here. And if you feel like you've lost the cheeks, the rosiness, you can always go back. I'm not rubbing, I'm not doing any flicking or anything. I'm just dotting just to add that color back. All right, so now let's go ahead and do the beak. So I'm going to be using the YR12. So I'm not going to, we're not going to add a whole bunch of detail because the beak is so small, especially this bottom part. So that's the bottom part. Actually, okay, so now let's take the Y26 because we want to make sure that it stands out. So right above, well, I guess right below the top part of the beak, we want to add a shadow. And then we'll take the YR12 again. Just like that. So now let's go ahead and color the little frogs. Okay, so for the frogs, we're gonna be coloring them G24, G21, and G20. So we're gonna start with the G21. Since they are very small, we can't get a whole bunch of definition in. So let's start with the one that's in the bathtub. And I'm just going to add little flicks where the arms are, make a shadow underneath the head and onto the body. And coming up the side of the head here. And over here. Zoom a little bit. And then we're going to take the G20. And I'm going to fill in little frog's body. And now let's take the G24. We're going to make the shadows a little bit deeper. And we're going to color in his mouth. And we're going to take the G21. We're going to add some little flicks. Just to blend it out a little. And then again with the G20 to pull out some more of that G21. Okay, so I'm going to take my BG70 and where we added all of the areas for the bubbles. So you notice how we did the scallop bumps all over everything. So every time you see one of those, we're going to add a bubble. And there's going to be some in between that don't have a scallop, so you just make that one a little bit smaller. And then same thing here. And then the ones on the floor. And let's make this in a little bit. There we go. Okay, so now we can see the bubbles a little bit better. Let's go ahead and start coloring the bathtub. So if you see like where we've overlapped, just like how we did with the duck, we're not going to add any color there, just like, you know, the top of his head. We're going to be adding some more colors to the bubbles and also some a trick with the white gel pen that I'm going to show you to help fix and kind of cover up those lines. So for the bathtub, let's go ahead and color it teal. So I'm going to be using the BG13, BG11, and BG10. I'm going to start with my BG11. And we're going to add a shadow underneath the rim of the bathtub. And we're just going to fill all of that in right there. And see that little corner? I didn't add any because it's going to interfere with my bubbles. And we're going to come down a little bit. And underneath the bathtub on the inner parts of the feet to the bathtub. All right, so then we're going to take the BG10. And you want to get a good blend right along the edge of the BG11, and then we're going to fill it all in. And now let's go back with BG13. So I'm going to go down the side of the bathtub and then underneath, right where we added the BG11. And on the bottom. And let's add a line almost meeting in the middle. And then BG11. I'm going to drag out the BG13 on both sides of the bottom of the bathtub, so that way we cover up the outline. For here, I'm going to come all the way around, so I'm dragging some of that BG13 across. And then let's go ahead and do a heavy flick, dragging out that BG13. And now for the top part of the bath, we're gonna come around along the bottom and a little bit along the top. And it's wrapping back behind. So this is the bathtub back here. And I totally went through my bubbles, but that's okay. And then we're gonna take the BG10 and let's just fill in and I'm gonna add a little bit of BG13 back here and wrapping to the front, but just a little tiny bit. And then right here, it's just gonna come out slightly. And then let's take the BG11 just so we can drag out that BG13 that we just added. Actually, I'm gonna blend this a little bit better. All right, so now let's go ahead and add the color to the water. So we're gonna take the BG000 and I'm just gonna fill it all in. Just like that. And then let's go ahead and wash the soap with the E42 and E41. So just a little shadow along the bottom. And then fill it in with the E41. And for the towel, let's go ahead and color that pink. So I'm going to use my R20 and R000. So starting with the R20, I'm just going to come down each of these sides and right where it's creased. And then I'm going to trace these little pink, or I'm going to make them pink, the little squiggly lines along the bottom part of the towel. And then with the R000, we're just going to drag out some of the R20 and then fill it in. So it's a very light colored towel. The little scrubber, we're going to color it BV0000 and BV000. So I'm going to start, since there's not a whole lot of space there, I'm going to start with the BV40s and I'm just going to fill in the top part of the brush. And then I'm going to take my BV000 and come along the bottom part. And then back with my BV0000. Just add that little bit, and then we're going to take the E41 just to color in those the little brushes on the brush. And to make them stand out a little bit more, let's take the E42 and right along the bottom part of the purple, where the bristles of the brush start, we're just going to add that little line, and that really gives it that definition between the plastic part and the bristles of the brush. All right, so now let's go ahead and we're gonna let's do the floor first, and then we will do the bubbles. So I'm going to start with BG000, and I'm just going to go over the bubbles again. So I'm going to do this section here coming out of the bathtub, and then I'm going to do the ones on the floor, and then we'll go back and shadow them together. So then I'm going to take my BG11 and I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm not tracing them fully around. I'm coming around one side or the other. And then let's take Y00, and this time I'm gonna go fully around, because I want to drag out those darker colors out with this lighter color, so it really gives us that look of the like rainbow bubbles. And then let's take RV10, and depending on how much of the pink you want showing, actually whatever color you like the most. So if you like more of the yellow, or you like more of the blue, or you like more of this pink, go with that. That way you kind of make it your own. So I'm gonna come around just like how we did with the BG11, and I'm just gonna pick and choose where I'm gonna come around, just so it looks like there's certain highlights to the bubbles. And then let's take the BG10. This time I'm going to go all the way around. So we're mixing these colors as we go all the way around. And some BV000. Again, I'm not going all the way around. I'm just going to add a little bit here and there. And then let's do some B12. So this is going to be just along the one side again. That really makes it stand out. So then what we're going to do is we're going to take our white gel pen. Make sure it works, yes. And I'm going to add a highlight going along the top, or a dot. Around each of the bubbles. And then where the areas where you can see the bathtub, we're going to add a T, maybe a dot, another dot over here, and then we're going to add dots all over to make it look like it's sparkly bubbles. Maybe another T here, because it makes it look like it's sparkly then. Like that. And actually let's add maybe even some coming into here. just like that. Okay, so it looks super cute. I'm gonna go ahead and do these ones on the floor and the ones up here, and then we will finish the rest of our scene. So all of the bubbles are done. We are still going to be adding a few more larger bubbles. So I'm going to go ahead and trace those out using my C00. And we're gonna make this guy right here in one of those bubbles. So I'm going to make a circle, and you can always, if you feel more comfortable, using a stencil or a circle die so that way you could go around it. I just like to wing it. So there's one, and then we're gonna make another one here, here, and add there, and then a couple little ones over here. Just like that. And maybe a large one kind of going off the page. I am off the page. Here we go. And another one here. All right, so I'm gonna color all of those bubbles offline, and when I get to these two right here, I'm going to show you how I do those two large ones. So using your chisel nib, because it's such a large area, it makes it a lot easier. So make sure you trace around the bubbles first and around the bathtub and fill it all in. So then we're gonna add some extra sparkles, just like how we did here, around some of these bubbles. And then we're gonna take a multi-liner and dot each of the eyes on our little critters, and then we're gonna be done. Super excited to see how it's going to look. Right, so here is our finished piece. Now it's ready for a card base. I added the little sparkles with the white gel pen all around and the little black dots, and adding the black dots for the eyes really makes this image just come to life. So let's go ahead and get this on a card base. All right, so here is my finished card. I went ahead and die cut out the center with a rectangle stitch die, and then I adhered the back part to the card base itself, and then popped up the part that has the stitching around it with some foam tape. So here's another card that I made using the same technique. I just added some more of the ducks and a lot more bubbles and some more shadowing. So I actually like the way the lighter one looks better without as much shadows. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned a couple new techniques, and have a wonderful day.